Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Holly June Smith, romance author of plenty of hilarious and really fun romance books. We talk a lot about her writing process, how she balances creating a really strong character and plot in shorter novella form books, and of course, talk about plenty and plenty of books. So let me know what you think in the comments, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome in, Holly. If you'd just like to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and the books that you write.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Well, I'm Holly June Smith. I'm a contemporary romance author. I've been saying it for 4 years, but still feels like a mouthful. And in the same way that I'm very much a mood reader, I'm very much a mood writer. So I always say contemporary romance because it's kind of a catch-all for the things that I do. But I have quite a few holiday novellas, and that's, I think, where people often discover me. But I'm not necessarily a holiday author. And I have a series called the Sunshine Book Club series, which follows three different friends. And then I just kind of, wait for inspiration to come and see. I always say, like, my next book is going to tell me what my next book is. I'm not sitting down and being like, I have to come up with an idea. It'll just be like, hello, you have to write this now. So yeah, just contemporary romance, but a really nice mix of sweet and spicy. There's lots of really good smut in my books, if I say so myself.
There is.
And not too much peril, but a nice bit of banter and tension and a little emotional angst sprinkled in for good measure. That's me.
How did you originally begin writing? Was it something that you'd always done from when you were younger, or was it quite a relatively new thing that you've really gone into?
I find it really interesting. So I wrote my first book in 2022. Maybe my first book came out in 2022, but I had always written in various forms in my past work. So I used to work in the charity sector and do a lot of like digital writing. And I also had a side job as a wedding celebrant for 12 years. So I was writing real life couples' love stories and bringing them together and then performing wedding ceremonies every weekend. So I felt like that was actually a really good foundation for when the inspiration struck to write a book. And then obviously I've been a reader for my whole life. So I think it was kind of always destined to happen, but there wasn't really, I was going to say there wasn't really like a moment in my childhood where I was like, I'm going to be an author. But I was always writing stories or, a blog when I was like in my teens or my live journal or whatever. Very indulgent. Thank God nobody can read that. I dread to think what was on there. But it feels like a lot of things have kind of come to this perfect place, and it's like the dream job. And now I can't imagine what else I would do.
Yeah, doing anything else. Tell us a little bit about your writing process. Do you plot your whole book before you start writing it, or you very much go with the flow as you begin?
I've always taken a very experimental approach to writing and writing as a business. And I talk about that quite a lot with other authors. For me, there's not necessarily like a one size fits all anything. And what's worked for some books, I've done completely different for other books. So I like to often a kind of almost fully formed idea will come to me, at least in terms of the characters, who they are to each other, what the dynamic is going to be in their relationship, and what the main tropes are, and the kind of start, middle, and end. I'll always know that. And then I like to use an outlining process called it's called the three act 9 block 27 chapter structure, which sounds much more complicated. It's written by an author, and I can send a link for you to include in the notes and things. But it's a really, really wonderful way to kind of, if you can fill in each of those 27 chapters with a little thing that is going to happen, and it's similar to things like Save the Cat and other beat sheets. But if I know kind of each of those, then I feel confident that I can sit down and make that into a fully formed book. And sometimes I will bounce around and I will write chapters out of order and I will just see where it goes. But other books I've written, I've literally just sat down and written chapter 1 and then chapter 2 and then gone from there. So it's, as much as it's a process, it's very much dependent on my mood and my motivation and my energy and kind of what feels right to do in that moment. I don't like feeling like I've boxed myself in too much with, oh, but this is not what the outline says, because sometimes the characters reveal things about themselves as they go, or I'll have a thought in the middle of the night of like, oh, of course he wouldn't do that. So that will dictate kind of what's going to happen in the next couple of chapters. It's really exciting. Yeah, I really love kind of, and I like processes, and I've read lots about other authors' processes, and tried different things. And some things stick and some things don't. But the thing I've found through all of this is that what works one time won't necessarily work the next time. Right. And it's good to kind of change things up.
Yeah. Are your characters the same, where you kind of have an initial idea for them and then they grow as the plot grows with them as well? Is that the same for you?
Yeah, I'll usually have a really good sense of who they are in terms of their, like obvious characteristics, like what they look like, their age, what their job is, and their main kind of personality traits. Are they going to be a kind of really, like an alpha male, or are they going to be a bit softer and a bit more cautious and a bit timid into stepping into a relationship? And that will really help in the early stages in terms of fleshing out a character. And I like to kind of step away from my computer and grab a notebook and jot down as much as I kind of can about what that person would be like and the main things that have happened in their life. Because then what I can do is, as I'm going into each chapter, I can be thinking about, well, how will those things have impacted their gut reaction to this situation, how they're going to act, how they're going to speak, what are they going to hold back, what are they going to reveal about themselves to the other characters in the story as it goes on. Because we don't meet people in real life and have a conversation with, well, we might do if you're an oversharer like me, but we rarely meet people and sit down and go, here's everything you need to know about me, everything I know about myself, all of my trauma, all of my history, here's my CV, here's all of my friends. Now you know everything about me. We don't do that. We present our best selves, and then our layers get peeled back, and then we gradually understand more about each other. And sometimes we like those things, and sometimes we don't like those things. And also, even the most self-aware of people and characters will always have things that they don't really understand about themselves and ways that they behave that they can't necessarily explain. The book that I'm writing at the moment, and we'll talk about it more in a bit, but the male main character does something at the beginning that shocks himself. It's the very first thing he does. And the whole opening scenes are him going, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I don't know why I'm doing this. He can't explain his actions at all. It's very out of character for him. But obviously, as the book goes on, we come to understand him more and why he has taken such drastic steps. But yeah, at the same time, those characters will also grow with me and with the story. And so that's always really fun as well, when I have these kind of light bulb moments of like, oh, I really understand this person now. Thank you for opening up to me, fictional man.
Yeah.
Who I invented in my head.
Yeah,
so
who's
bizarre.
completely made up. Do you have a book that when you've been writing it, it's like the most memorable for you when you look back on it? Or are all of them like, I suppose it's a bit like picking a favorite child when we're talking about writing books and things. But do you have like the most memorable one that stands out in your mind? Or perhaps one that you learned the most about yourself whilst you were writing?
Oh God, that's a much more complicated question. A couple of things spring to mind. So because I've written 3 Christmas books, and I've written them all in the summer, usually in a heat wave. So I'll be working them June, July, August, finishing up in September for like a November release. And so and 2 of them are set so it's the Snowbound Secrets duet. So it's Can I Tell You Something and See You Next Winter. And they are both set in the French Alps, which is a place that I've spent quite a lot of time. I've skied my whole life. I love skiing. My 2 main passions in life are reading and skiing, and eating. That's 3. But so writing those and trying to like immerse myself in like the ski world and the ski culture while I'm sitting in the office in like a vest and my pants because it's boiling is so bizarre. And then having to sort of put on YouTube videos of people's GoPros going down ski mountains just to really kind of like immerse myself in being cold. So that's always been quite memorable on like a funny level. But on a deeper level, I think The Best Book Boyfriend was a life-changing experience for me to write, because I had been working on a book. So it's the first book I wrote, but not the first book I published, which I'll explain in a minute. So it's the first book I wrote, and I had been working on another book, which is more sort of literary fiction, for several years, both like in my head and a little bit every now and then getting it written. And it was at about 70,000 words. And I was kind of enjoying it, but it wasn't like lighting me up. I was just like, it was very much that classic, like, you know, the best books are a struggle to write. And I don't believe that now. So I, in 2021, went for a massage, and I had this fully formed idea for this story of the best book boyfriend, which would be about these two people who had both very different experiences of loss. So he's a widower, but her partner of 12 years has left without any explanation. And so they are both very like, love is off the cards now. She's just quite happy to lose herself in fictional men. He's kind of trying to piece back his life, and he has opened a cafe in her town. And so the whole book kind of came to me, like I say, pretty much fully formed. And I knew what their names were going to be, and I knew the kind of all of the main beats of the story in the course of this 1 hour massage. And I was really annoyed about it because I was thinking, I can't write that. I've got this other book to finish. So I decided to go home and write down kind of everything that I knew was going to happen, put that book on a shelf, and then come back to it at a later point. But by the end of that day, I'd written nearly 10,000 words. And then I obviously couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was December. So I thought, well, I'll wait till the end of December and then I'll go back to the other one. And by the end of December, I'd written half the book. And then in the January, I remember sitting down with my partner and saying, I'm really, really invested in this book. I really feel like it's a sellable book, and that I could finish it and send it to agents and get a book deal. I mean, I really backed myself. And is it okay if I do a bit less of my other work in order to focus on this? Because I was doing my celebrant business and I also have a coaching business, and just trying to find the kind of balance of, if I sat down to write as much as I could every day, then I would be earning a bit less. And he was totally on board. And he said, you know, like, yeah, if this is where your like passion has suddenly come back to you, and this is kind of post-COVID, I had small children, fully self-employed in a new town. So I think he was like, you're very lit up by this. Let's, you know, we're going to encourage this, keep going. And so when I finished that book in the spring and then started querying it, I was like, oh God, I've written a book. I've actually done it. I've written a book. I'm going to get an agent. I'm going to get a book deal. And then it wasn't happening immediately. I mean, I was getting manuscript requests and things, but in the meantime, I'd started to look at what all the other authors who I really love were doing, and realised that most of them were self-publishing. And at that point, I knew nothing about self-publishing. I always thought self-publishing was like an old man in the pub who's written a book about trains, and he's bought 1,000 copies and they're in his garage, so he's trying to flog them.
Yeah.
And that's such an outdated, like, awful view about what self-publishing perhaps used to be, and it's not that now. And so yeah, when I think about the book that's had the kind of biggest impact on my life, it's that one, because it was the one that I finished that then spurred me on to learn about self-publishing, experiment with it, and that's what I've been doing ever since and haven't looked back. So it's that was definitely a memorable experience, to just have this thing of like, okay, I'm doing this now, I've got the wind in my sails, and yeah, changed my life. And also it's very serendipitous that we're talking about it today, because today is the 3rd birthday of that book coming out. So
Happy
after this, I need to make a little
birthday.
reel or TikTok or something. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with those kind of, particularly with self-publishing, you have to be all in. You have to really want to do it to make it work, don't you? And I'm so glad that it's worked out for you, because your books are amazing.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you're a reader yourself. Do you have a favorite trope to read about, and is it the same that you like to write about, or do you keep them quite separate?
I think a lot of what I read also falls under the contemporary romance genre, but in the same way, yeah, I always say I'm a mood reader and a mood writer, and it really much depends on. Sometimes there'll be a trope that I'm just reading absolutely loads of, and I cannot get enough. And then other times it's, you know, I found the first in a series and I want to read the rest.
Yeah.
And they're all slightly different variations. And then sometimes, you know, you just want like a quick hit of some spice. So
Yeah.
that's what you go for instead. So it very much depends. And it's been very fluctuating. There are times where I am, you know, I'm almost not writing because I'm hooked on someone else's book, and then I have to go, no, Holly, this is your work time, sit down, get your words written, you can read theirs later. And other times I'm very, very deep into my writing that I don't want to be reading other people's stuff because I don't want it to be kind of, I don't want to be thinking about other characters when I really need to be spending as much time as possible with my own. So, but yeah, always I'm trying, it's hard to pin down the exact thing that I want. I love men who are like absolutely feral for
Nice.
their women. I'm not so much of a like romantasy reader because I don't quite always have the brain that can visualize things very well. So things that tend to be set in kind of, yeah, the modern day with real people and places and characters that I can imagine is a bit, that's what really hooks me in. I think the thing with novellas is that you don't necessarily get the chance to spend a lot of time with the characters separately before they meet each other. So in all of mine, they are either people who've known each other for a long time, and so they already have a history that you can kind of sprinkle throughout the book that deepens the layers of their relationship. So I loved writing See You Next Winter because it's a childhood friends to lovers book. They spend every winter break together, and so for years they've had this like 2-week hookup for the holidays packed, and then he hasn't been home for a few years, but now he's back, and so that's very confronting for her. But what I really loved about that book was having all these flashback chapters peppered throughout it, which go back further and further and further until they were children. And so that's a way to kind of help the reader understand why the things that they're doing in the present time are so meaningful, because they have these layers of history. Whereas other ones like Scary in Love or Can I Tell You Something, where they meet at the beginning, they are then coming to the story with this, oh, I'm surprised to be meeting this person, and their dynamic has to happen quite quickly, but there will still be things that they are, like I was saying earlier, not revealing about themselves straight away. So it's, yeah, I think for me, I'm always just thinking in every single chapter that I'm writing, what are these characters learning about each other? What is the reader learning about these characters that the other character doesn't know yet? Because I think that's really enjoyable as a reader when I'm like, oh, he's doing this because of that, and she doesn't know that yet. And I'm really like, she's going to find out, and she's either going to be like, you know, blown away, or she's going to be overwhelmed, or it's going to bring them together, or it's going to push them apart. Or that's the kind of thing where, yeah, I really love to read and write books where the reader knows something that the characters don't quite know yet.
Okay.
Forgive me, I don't know what's going on outside of these sirens, or if you could hear them, but they'll go by in a second. So yeah, that's it for me. You know, in a novella length book, you have to have a reasonable amount of exposition up front, but you can still hold things back as a writer and bring them out at crucial points. That's probably how I do it, I think. Maybe. I don't know. I probably don't think about it that deeply.
Are there any non-negotiables in your writing process? So are there like any like rituals that get you in the mood to write, or are you always in the headspace to do so?
I'm definitely not always in the headspace. Sometimes it's it's funny because last year I didn't write that much. I had quite a lot of things going on in my personal life and mentally actually last year. And so some days it was a real chore to sit down and write. And so in 2020, at the start of 2026, I've hired a lovely office space and I've got everything set up and it's just for me. Everything else I've written in the past has been written at our family dining table, surrounded by just, you know, life. And so I'm now at a point where there's literally nothing in the way of me just sitting down and writing. And then I'll still show up and go, oh, you know, there's some resistance here. I'm not sure why. And it's funny because I always say to people who think, oh, I'd love to write a book one day, there's never going to be this perfect day when you have everything exactly aligned to do it. So I think the sort of the non-negotiable for me is probably just inherently having some trust in myself, that even if it's not a big word count word today, that doesn't mean like, I'm ruined for the rest of my life. We'll go again tomorrow. And I've done this enough times now that I trust that even if there is a blocker or some resistance showing up, it will shift.
Mm-hmm.
The older I get, the more I'm impacted by my hormones. So there are just days of the month where I'm like, I just feel like it's not going to be a very good writing day today. And other times of the month where I'm like, let's clear all the other stuff off the schedule and the admin, because I really want to just lock in. And at the moment, it's just, about trying to use as much time as possible. I recently got a folding keyboard, which I can just put in my handbag. And that's been a real game changer, even in just 1 week, because it means that I can connect it to my phone. And then if my kids are at activities, I can just bash out 1,000 words. Or if I'm on a train somewhere, rather than just scrolling, I could just be getting some stuff done. So I think maybe the folding keyboard is my new non-negotiable. Trust is the mental non-negotiable. The folding keyboard is the practical non-negotiable.
If one of your books was to be adapted into a TV show or a film, which one would you want to see adapted first?
I would absolutely love to see Can I Tell You Something on the big screen, because I think it would just work so well. So it's about an audio erotica narrator. He goes on a Christmas holiday with his friend. It turns out his friend's sister is a listener and she knows who he is, but initially he doesn't know that she knows. So there's very much this character who his name is Cameron, and so he's very much himself, but then he has this alter ego who she knows through his audio erotica work. And so I think just having the dynamic on screen of this character who is kind of himself but also performing this character is a really interesting one. And also I just love that like tension of the viewer knows, and she knows who he is, and we were all waiting for him to find out that it's just like, I would love that so much. And then the Sunshine Book Club series would be amazing, because it's 3 books about these 3 friends and their loved lives. And so that's always really fun, I think, in sitcoms and stuff, when you have these like different storylines bubbling away, and you kind of are invested in seeing where each of them goes. One day, maybe, fingers crossed.
I feel like TV shows in particular always are the most fun when there's like a core cast of characters that you just keep returning to. So I feel like it will be very fun with that one.
Yeah.
Can you tease anything about what you're working on? You mentioned it previously a little bit. If you wanted to talk about that anymore, I don't want to get you into any trouble or spill any secrets too soon.
No, historically, I've always been such a big early secret sharer with my work. And, through all of the jobs that I've done in my career, I've always really advocated for making your work visible and not just being like, boom, here's a book, surprise. Although I did do that once, but bringing readers along the journey with you and kind of showing, oh, this is where I'm at, this is what's coming next. The more I've gotten into the work, the more I'm like, no, come on, let's, you're just flinging out what should be a marketing strategy is just me yapping on Instagram stories. But I am at the point now where I can talk about my next book, which is called Till Dad Do Us Part. So it's an age gap, fiance's dad, runaway bride situation. And I am hoping to release it, it'll be out in 2026. I think it'll be late summer 2026. And I'm having so much fun with these characters. This is the one where at the very beginning of the story, he takes her away from the church and he is like, what have I done? Why am I doing this? I don't understand. And she's also like, I'm just going along with this. That's a lot of fun. The part of it that I'm really working on at the moment is very much the holding things back and the secrets phase, but it's all gonna come out very soon. So yes, that's really exciting. And I haven't done age gap. I've done an age gap where she's older, the No Rules roommate, she's older, but I haven't done age gap where he's older. And I have a wonderful assistant that works with me called Danielle, and she says that one of her favourite tropes is anyone's dad. So I think that she's gonna really love this one as well. And hopefully the other anyone's dad fans will too. So yeah, I'll be teasing lots more about it soon.
Yeah, can't wait to read it. One last question before we go. What's your favorite thing about your job, about what you get to do? What's your favorite?
Oh my gosh, I think it's just the connection that you can have with readers and with other authors and the bookish community. Writing by nature is a very isolated thing. Even if you are a writer who does, sprints with other authors, or you go to a co-working space or a coffee shop. I can't go to a coffee shop because I just spend the whole time chatting to people and not actually getting any writing done. But you can then have when you're really focused on the work, you can have long periods of feeling, like you're not really connected with people or you're a bit isolated. But the fact that I've been able to make friends with readers and authors all over the world is so incredible. And I've, gotten so much from them in terms of recommendations and, friendships and support and encouragement and community. And I just think that's the unexpected massive benefit of the work. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you.
I love asking it because everybody always says the romance community. Everybody always says it, and I just love that.
Oh,
so
do
much.
they?
Because
now I feel like
that's
a cliche.
that's my favorite thing about being a reader. So I'm glad that the authors feel the same.
Yeah, I think the romance community in particular is really special. I mean, it's obviously the one that I'm in, but I don't know that when I read other works of fiction that I'm always like, I always really admire those authors, but I don't necessarily feel like I'm going to jump into their DMs and be like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with you. By the way, I'm your new #1 fan. In the same way that romance world does. And yeah, so I love that we can all be kind of wild and unhinged together.
Exactly. Well, lovely. Thank you so much for joining me, Holly. Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for having me, Robin.